Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where we talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the Secret Invasion finale, a great finale. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, obviously Nick doesn't know how things are going to play out going into this final battle, so he calls up Priscilla, and it is that conversation of, is this kind of potentially a goodbye for them? Because it's like, right, will you go away and will you potentially come back? Like, how long will you be gone? And he can't really answer because the state of things, what everything is, but also where do they play out? Where do they go going forward, So, but Nick, locked and loaded, ready for this fight against Gravik, who's waiting for him. And obviously, the pills can only do so much before the radiation starts getting to him. And I love the conversation he has with Gravik because it ends up being this interesting conversation that we've only tackled a little bit in this show. And it's something even now, even though the show's tackled it, it still never crossed my mind. Like, for example, with Vara, like we know where she got her face from. Like, we now know the story behind Priscilla. I don't think they ever talked about, like, well, where did Gaia's face come from? Because Gravik answered, like, where did his face come from? It's like, you don't even recognize this, do you? This is the face of the first man I ever killed for you. The fact of the matter is, you sent me out, and I was willing to do it because you were my hero. You were the guy that was going to get us to a new planet. The fact of the matter is, I did so much for you. And he's like, I've done so much. I killed so many people for you and in your name. And for what? For you to string us along. And I even love later on, he's like, you pimped us out. You basically had us, you and Talos had us hiding in the shadows, using us the way you did. And you strung us along for so many years. You made us your Talos said it in a very joking way, but also serious way back in episode, was it 3, about what the Skrull network of information did to make Fury as 3 steps ahead as he was. But it's it was brought up in a very let's set the record straight, but also a little bit of a fun back and forth. But now it's coming out in this regard where it's just kind of this is the flip side of no, the terrible things you had us do, it took away pieces of us. With every person we killed, we lost a little bit of ourselves, which Fury is like, yes, it happened. You're not the only ones. And he's like, yes, but I'm the only one brave enough to admit it, because Fury drops bodies left and right, but he's never willing to admit the cost that it takes about it rips your heart apart. It makes you, that's why Gravik is the way he is, and that's why he holds even more animosity, because you broke me. Any form of a heart I have is long since dead, broken into millions of pieces, and it's because of you. And for what? I did all of that for nothing. I did that for the hope that we would get our own planet one day, and that never happened. And, and that's why he wants to take it out on Fury. He wants to take it out on humanity because he's brought up his points before, but it's also him just being vindictive against Fury. It's you had us do all this to protect this world, then I will burn the world that you want to protect. He's when all the bombs go off and when this place is scorched earth, know that it is all your fault that this is happening. Because even Fury admitted it. And now I'm curious, how much of that was just ad-libbed and how much of that was true of what was said. Jumping ahead, I thought that was a beautiful twist because I was like, all right, what's this going to be? And it turns out it's Gaia in disguise. I figured it had to be some kind of ploy like that. I just wasn't sure. But when it comes to what she said as Fury of right, I knew a couple years into us looking for a planet that it was never going to find one for you. So at the very least, I thought it would be easier to save the lives of 8 billion people rather than to try and change them to accommodate the million that would be coming in from the Skrulls. And I think that's so interesting because it's right, it's easier to keep things kind of the status quo than it is to change the hearts and minds of 8 billion people. Once again, going back to the conversation of episode 2 of, there's not enough tolerance on this planet. We beef with each other since, as he said, since we could walk. And the fact of the matter is, you're going to add in another species. It was never going to be that copacetic. Yes, there are going to be those who are going to be a lot more open to it than others. But it's like how we as humans can't find a peaceful way of coexisting. How are we going to coexist with another species? So I think that is kind of sad to know that that's what Fury's perspective on things was. I do believe, well, because the thing is because that's what makes it interesting, because how much of that is just Gaia like spitballing because she like is able to read Fury enough, or how much of that is like he scripted it out. Like, I'm curious about every response she gave. Did she give the responses that Fury like was like, no, this is what he's most likely going to bring up, this, you answer with this, just to solidify it more? I have no idea, like I said, how much of that is just what Fury really felt and really feels versus how much is just Gaia's spitballing and just inferring because that's what she's kind of feeling. Like that's her projecting what she believes Fury really feels like, you know? So, and it's like, right, just take the harvest and leave. You want to go destroy some other planet, do it, fine, just leave Earth and don't come back. Because because for him it's like he spent the past couple decades protecting this planet. And for him it's like, you know what I felt the moment I got snapped? He's like, relief. Because for the first time in decades, it's like it's that I actually get to rest. I don't have to literally carry the weight of the world on my shoulders anymore. Always worried about the next threat, the next thing that's going to come down the pipeline. And it's just like, right, you felt some relief in that. And when you came back, all of that came rushing back and it became overbearing because you let yourself feel that relief for a second as you were drifting away. Just those final thoughts in your mind as you flicked into those flakes was, it's quiet now. It's finally quiet. I can rest, and to be brought back into it being like, yo, got to pick up in the aftermath of the snap how much it had of an effect on not only the world. He's really more so worried about the world. He's not worried about the bigger scale things, the universe shit. That's like, yeah, that's Carol's and any like cosmic people, that's their shit to deal with, not mine. Earth is my base to really deal with. But it's still like, yeah, that's a lot that would have fallen on him to kind of, and then it's like, right, now it's like, any other future threats would come. It's like, it's just easier, like, right, I'm gonna go to the station and be in the cosmic stuff and protect Earth this way, but I don't have to be on the ground level handling the day-to-day. Like, the day-to-day stuff is one thing. It's like, I get to escape into Saber and kind of let that be the focus of me. Like, kind of take that vacation, even though not really. So, I just, like I said, I'm so curious how much of that was Gaia and how much of that was Fury. What I was so surprised by is when we like got to look at the DNA of the harvest. It isn't just the Avengers. It had everything in there. It had Chitauri. It even had the Black Order. And like, so that means Thanos' DNA had to be in there too. Like, obviously, like, I try to pause it at some of those names. But yeah, like, I saw Chitauri. I saw, obviously, Hulk. I saw, there were some names there that I was kind of shocked. I was like, why would your blood sample be there? Because obviously, I thought it had Bucky's in there as Winter Soldier. Obviously, I saw Thor's name. Obviously, Hulk. There were some other names I wasn't sure of. Then I'm like, what is that? And obviously they made sure to show you, and obviously it comes up in the episode too of like, yeah, Carol. Oh yeah, Drax is like, Mantis is like all the Guardians too, like everyone's DNA was there. Someone had pointed it out being like, oh yeah, Howard the Duck. I was like, all right, I constantly forget Howard was there on the battlefield too. Once again, I brought this up last episode too, it's such an interesting thing because not everyone on that battlefield has special powers tied to their DNA and their blood. Like you have like an Ant-Man, you have like, you have Scott and Hope, for example, their powers are tied to suits, but then you like, hey, you have Tony's DNA there, but it's like, right, maybe you could absorb his smarts from the DNA, but he had no superpowers for you to take, I mean, his intellect is a superpower, but you get what I'm saying? Whereas like everyone else, they never utilized it in a fight. Thor's DNA is there, so like how much of that can you really channel? Because but there's always been that debate, especially Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. really like made that debate of, well, they're not actually gods, they're just aliens, but that was kind of like an Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. bit, so I don't know how much they're kind of carrying that over of like, because even Thor only really channeled his power through Mjolnir. It's not until Ragnarok that he realized, like, right, the power comes from me, so maybe, like, you'd really have to deep dive into it to pull out the god. Can you pull out the DNA of a god? Is that it? That's a whole interesting thing, but going back to things, like, that's why Fury is like, I came back. Because I heard someone say, like, they were curious, like, wait, is that implying, like, Fury knew about the Harvest? It's like, no, he knew that Gravik was behind a lot of the Skrull uprising. So that's why he came back, because he's like, I'm personally responsible for you. Because you were my young soldier, and and it's like, right, you were essentially a child soldier, and it's like, I did kind of take advantage of you. I did wrong you. I sent you down the wrong path because I didn't teach you to never give up, and that led to you. I wasn't here. I should have stepped in. I should have been a better mentor. I should have pointed you in the right direction, and it sent you down this path that you're on. So that's why I came back, because you are my responsibility. Granted, it's not until last episode he figured out, like, what Gravik was aiming for. What he's really looking for was the Harvest. So he activates the device, and the moment they start fighting, I was like, wait, is that implying, like, right, Fury is a Skrull? I was like, that's what I was wondering. And then it being Guy, I was like, yo, that's a nice twist. I was just, because I was like, there's no way Fury came into this without a plan. But it's like, yeah, you ended up making another, which I was immediately my brain went, wait, so you're both Super Skrulls? Because that was something that was introduced early on of like, wait, are there going to be multiple Super Skrulls in this universe? Turns out it's not going to be the case, but dude, it's actually really dope to see that kind of like get applied. Like, I think it seem like one of the arms she transformed into at one point that Gaia turned to was Drax's. It looked like one of them was Korg's arm. It looked like both of them did that. I know at one point, Gravik used like Hulk's leg, it seemed like. I even love the whole, like, when they obviously both kicked into using Carol's power, it's like, yikes. Last thing you need is two other people in the universe with Carol's powers, and then her, like, using Mantis's ability to put him to sleep. I was like, that's actually really dope. This whole situation actually reminded me of What If. Interestingly enough, spoilers for What If you haven't seen it. Episode 3, when it was Fury fighting, Hank, but it turned out to be Loki in disguise. It's just very reminiscent of that to some extent. But yeah, she killed Gravik. Blew a literal beam through his chest, which immediately I was like, well, for one, I'm wondering, like, is there probably, like, a limit to how much the extremists can heal you? Like, I guess with, like, I don't know if that's going to be, like, the implication there that, like, hey, like, all of that energy, like, when you blast that much energy through someone, I don't know, maybe she was absorbing, like, the extremists from him in the time, so it's like he doesn't have, like, the strongest healing factor in that moment, because he didn't heal from that. I guess it's like, there's such severe damage that even the extremists can't recover you from. I don't know, someone else could probably clarify that a little bit more. But the moment that was done, I was like, so there is only one Super Skrull in this universe, and they're a good guy too, which I think is kind of a neat twist to continue, because obviously when the Skrulls were introduced, it's like, wow, they're bad guys in the comics, so you're making them good guys, and obviously with this, you kind of made, like, obviously it's like an extremist group that ended up rising up and kind of like leading a coup, but it's so fascinating. So it's like, right, the Super Skrull isn't a bad guy in this universe. It's actually going to be a hero, maybe even potentially an Avenger? I don't know. I know nothing, like, other than knowing, like, oh, the Super Skrull is a Skrull that ended up absorbing the Fantastic Four's powers. That's the only thing I know about the Super Skrull. So when they introduced the concept of, oh, there could be multiple ones, and there's only one in the comics that I'm aware of. So the fact is they were going to introduce potentially others was going to be interesting. But now we see, like, no, it is one, but continuing with the Skrulls being good guys, it's a good guy Super Skrull. So what that means in the future, who knows? Because she's got everyone's powers, and that's going to be a scary thing just to have out there in the universe, and how that plays out is going to be interesting. Especially, well, let's go ahead and fold over to the other side of the story where we have Rhodey really pushing the president, like, yo, you need to do this. You need to do this. Sir, just give me permission. We just got to take this whole situation out. And Sonya calls up Rhodey to get the president moved, but it's like, because Rhodey thinks he still has her fooled. So people start getting systematically taken out. I'm like, yo, I know Sonya's a badass, but is this her alone? She's got to have backup or something. I even love the whole thing of like, oh, you didn't check behind the doors. You really are a Skrull. And it turns out the real Fury was there, tranking people left and right. And it comes down to that wire situation of like the president doesn't know who to listen to, especially when it's like, yeah, the person you trust right now, the person you listen to so much, yeah, that's a Skrull. And it's like, no, don't listen to him, sir. And Fury's like, hey, just wait a couple minutes. At the very least, if you want to arrest me afterwards, that's fine. You get to like flatten Russia like you want to. Rhodey tried to make a move and got put down. It's like, yo, Scrody, I think that's the nickname people have been calling Rhodey. Like, she has a name, but I'm blanking on it. I actually learned this recently, and I thought it was such an interesting thing. There is like in the Secret Invasion story, there is I forgot who it was. There's a character that actually, I can't remember who it was. Someone had said that they had showed that in the comic, there is a female Skrull that took the form of a male Skrull. So, fake Rhodey is kind of almost supposed to be like a parallel / homage to that in the comics. I don't remember who the character was. I think it's, spoilers for Secret Invasion. I believe, if I remember correctly, the person said Hank Pym, the Skrull that pretended to be Hank Pym, was a female Skrull. So I think it's meant to be kind of a parallel in that regard. So they were like, oh, like Rhodey's kind of the Hank Pym of this situation. So now that I'm sitting here thinking about it, I wonder, is that going to be what they're going to do with Gaia? Because she's going to be like kind of the leader of her people. I'm like, are they going to make her like, well, we don't know like what the rest of the hierarchy of like the Skrulls are, because it like Secret Invasion involves a Skrull queen. She was it Jessica Drew? Is that who she was in the comics? I believe that's who she was disguised as. I think the Skrull queen was Jessica Drew, Spider-Woman, if I remember correctly. Once again, I know nothing about comics. This is stuff I pick up from like stuff here and there from other people who are well more geeked out and nerd out than I am and know about the comics and stuff. So that's why I was wondering, like, is that what Gaia's going to be set up as? Is she going to be kind of like the Skrull queen, but is there already a Skrull queen out there in the world? Or, like, we don't really know the Skrulls like hierarchy, considering like so many of them are like locked up other places. Others are, well, most of the ones that were scattered around the universe have found their way to Earth. I'm sure there's others still scattered out there, but I'm like, interesting. So I'm assuming that means that, I don't know, man. I don't know what, it'd be interesting. It'd be really interesting if that's, especially could you cast Emilia Clarke as Gaia? It's almost perfect, because it's like, oh, she was, Daenerys. I've never watched Game of Thrones, but I've picked up stuff here and there, which almost feels like, oh, like you're making her Daenerys, and now she's potentially like Queen of the Skrulls. If that's the direction to go, it might not be the case at all, but I was like, that'd be interesting if that's the case. So what really surprised me was when the president was like, yeah, basically, if you're here on this planet and you're an alien, which I'm like, there's parallels you can make to that, but it's like real life parallels you can make to that, but it's like, yeah, we're going to basically treat you as hostiles if you were not born on this planet. Like, say, Jesus. I mean, yes, you had a literal invasion that was going to potentially start a world war, but you basically cast smoke with all aliens. Home dude, let's not forget, there are bad aliens and there are good aliens, just like there are bad humans and there are good humans. Some of those good aliens help save the freaking universe, So I'm like, that's what I thought was so wild. It's like, that's for him to like to be so hateful and just kind of declare war on all aliens. If you weren't born on this planet, you can catch this smoke. Kind of about to say, because they didn't set it up, because like, well, spoilers, like we know eventually someone else becomes the president in this universe. a certain movie that will not be named for the sake of just, we're not promoting anything right now. Like, just the talk of like, with everything going on with the strike, so let's not promote anything. So we're going to be vague about referencing like, oh, it's tied to a movie that we shall not name type of situation. Because I'm going to be referencing another movie that shall not be named that obviously connects to Secret Invasion. But it's like, so that's not, I was wondering if that was going to get resolved in this. I guess it was like, well, of course it wouldn't be, but I'm curious what the in-between answer is going to be of like, is that going to happen in that movie of like, oh yeah, that's going to be answered of this person becomes the new president. And does that happen at like the beginning of the movie or what? But it's like, yeah, because his declaration has massive ramifications because, was it Christopher McDonald's, that reporter, the news anchor or whatever, gets killed. And then like the prime minister gets killed, but it was the real prime minister at that point. It's like, it's not even just like military people, like you're sending out hit squad of like who you know. It is paranoia now exists in this world of like, oh, there's a million Skrulls on this planet and anyone could be one. And it's like, that British prime minister, literally someone ran up and shot her. It's like, you got vigilantes running out in the street because of your hateful rhetoric. You basically put a bullseye on any person because if someone acts a little suspicious, oh, you're a Skrull, and that could lead to so many casualties. So I think that's such an interesting and really heartbreaking and sad and disgusting place to leave this situation in. Of like, yeah, that paranoia still persists because once again, it's like that Skrull thing has not been resolved. It's still an active active thing in this world because Fury was making a point of you're alienating the Skrulls that would be on our side, like the one that was in the council who did not side with Gravik. We see her getting attacked and she defends herself. But it's like, yeah, even the Skrulls that would be our allies, could be our allies, you are alienating them and they were going to be less likely like to stick up for us because we're not sticking up for them. So Gaia has a meeting with Sonya, which I think that's kind of an interesting New Deal situation. It's like, oh, I want to make a deal with you. And it's like, right, we saw what happened with my dad and Fury, but it's like, no. We're not going to let feelings get in the way. Like, Talos, liked Fury a lot, he let a lot of that slide for so long. And that's where they made a mistake. It's like, no. She's like, you and I are going to enter an arrangement. You're going to use me and I'm going to use you. But we're going to do what we're going to do to basically help protect everyone. So all the good Skrulls in this world, we're going to make sure they're able to be protected and saved from like the president's like worldwide declaration against them. Because I'm sure there are going to be other world leaders that are going to fall in line, especially those. I mean, who knows where the British prime minister fell on that, considering like she was one of the people that was taken, like a lot of those world leaders and high position people who were replaced. How do they feel about it? Because Gaia did go and rescue everyone. The big question, because I figured Ross was really Ross. Like, I figured like the Ross we saw at the beginning wasn't, but we got clarification finally because people were still like unsure about that. But it's like, right. So he had to be taken fairly recently because the last time we saw Ross was still fairly recently enough in Wakanda Forever. So he had to be taken pretty quickly. Because once again, didn't, like I said, because we don't know if, also we have no idea how many Wakandans might have been replaced. Because they can't all be in America. Like, not all a million, like, of them are going to be in America. Maybe, like, their base of operations could be, like, in America. But, like, there's probably Skrulls and even in Wakanda. I mean, for all we know. So, that's why I was like... Because he got rescued by, I think, Okoye and maybe Michaela was there, too. But I think that was the last time you saw him, was them rescuing him. Because I think they were in their Midnight Angel suits. Other than that... I think that was the last time we saw him, so you'd assume maybe he went back to Wakanda, but maybe he stayed here, and that's when he got grabbed. Now, the real interesting one is when they went to Rhodey. Rhodey was wearing a nightgown. Now, not nightgown, a hospital gown. So they never explain how long he's been gone, but we can assume because he's wearing a nightgown, and the fact is he came off a little weaker, because everyone else kind of was a little groggy, but everyone's walking normally. He had to be carried. It's like, Rhodey's been gone since Civil War. Because while he was in a hospital, interesting enough, that's also when Vera ended up meeting Priscilla, interestingly enough. So maybe that's kind of a similar thing. But that's when Rhodey got replaced. So, and I brought that up previously. This is going to be a Rhodey who's going to be filled in of like, now that's going to make the Armor Wars situation even more interesting because it's like, anyone that's in the like suit of armor bit like area side of things in the universe, like Rhodey was kind of the last one, so that's interesting to know, like, because that means everything post Civil War, Infinity War, and Endgame he was a part. That wasn't even Rhodey and Falcon and the Winter Soldier. So it's like interesting. I was like, that's what I'm only presuming that because of what looked like a hospital guy, because everyone else was just wearing regular clothes. So it seemed like they got him when he was in a hospital. So like, cause one of the last times we saw Rhodey pre Infinity War was Tony helping him. Like he might have still been going through physical therapy. So maybe he did go through a little bit of it before he got replaced. So it seems like it's implying that, and because we don't know the exact date it is inside the MCU, but at least it's like 2025, 2027, maybe somewhere in that lane of things. And obviously Civil War takes place like, this movie came out 2016, but I think even timeline wise inside the MCU, it took place around 2016, 2017. So it's basically been 10 years of fake Rhodey. Like I said, he's going to have to be filled in on, yeah, Tony's gone. It's like, wait, what? Yeah, Tony sacrificed himself to save the entire universe. So that's going to be interesting. But like going back to like the Sonya and Gaia of it all, of like, okay, so what does that partnership look like? I hope, because I really do hope we get to see a lot more of Gaia and especially Olivia Colman as Sonya. She stole the show. Like everyone who I've come across is like, yo, Sonya's amazing. I love her because it's like, just like the cheerfulness and badassery that is Olivia Colman in the show. It's like, we need to see more of her. And I'm curious how that coincides with like a Valentina, for example. You know, what that would mean. I'd love to see those two butt heads at some point in time, which maybe they will in the future. There's a project obviously connected to all this. I mean, there's a future project and I'm like, maybe that could be where they pop up. I guess it's fine because nothing's like, there's no definitive date, so I'm not promoting anything that's coming up soon. Like, we don't know where this. I'll kind of leave it at that. I won't. There's at least two projects that could ultimately end up connecting to, so maybe we could see Sonya potentially pop up in those. Maybe even, I'll get to talk about, like, the next movie that has Sam. I'll say that. And another movie that has a roster of people. I'd actually forgot. Did we see her at the fight in, cause I forgot, I was like, one of the names on the list, I'm sorry, my brain's firing in so many different directions, cause I just remember one of the names on the list, I was like, what, I knew there was a name, I forgot that, I was like, wait, they were there? Ghost, her DNA was there. I was like, what? Cause they were utilizing that, at least like, Gaia was like phasing in and out like, Ghost did. I was like, was she on the battlefield in Endgame? That's implying that she was. I've not seen Endgame since it was originally in theaters, and I only saw it the one time. So I was like, interesting. We probably never saw her on screen, but it's implied that she was there, interestingly enough. Because I thought the last time we saw Ghost was probably like legitimately on screen was Ant-Man and the Wasp, but that means she was there during that fight, so which still leaves us up in the air of where she's supposed to be in another movie. Once again, trying to avoid names. So that other movie feels like a place we could see that, and the other movie that has Sam in it. Those movies feel like they could tie into this, specifically with the whole Sonya and Gaia of it all, but who knows? But it also, the ending being what it is with Fury and Vera. I keep bouncing back and forth between Vara and Vera. It's Vera, or is it Vara? Either way, because he had told Priscilla like he was going to leave again, and that he was sorry about how things had kind of played out. And for her, she went to kind of see him off. And because it was like, right, who are you going to... She's like, she knows who she's going to be when he's gone. She's like, it's only when he comes back that it kind of gets a little blurry. It's when it gets complicated, you know? Because it is back to that conversation of, if I was just me, if I was just the me that was really me, and I didn't just play the role of who Priscilla was, could you have fallen in love with me? And for him, it's like, I do. I love you. You and only you. Like, that wouldn't have changed, even if you had just been yourself. And they have that sweet moment ending, because he's like, right, I need your help. The Kree are like, yeah, we're willing to kind of strike a bargain, which does seem like that would tie into another movie, because there's a new replacement for a new accuser has stepped up, so it's like, right, that would have to deal with the Kree, so it means that said movie would be a direct sequel to this. I wonder, does the movie kind of pop back and forth? Like, does like some of this stuff with Secret Invasion happen during... Probably not. It's probably like all after Secret Invasion, because I have not seen the trailer for said movie. I've only seen the teaser. I decided not to watch the full trailer, even though I heard like there's still a lot of the same. But I'm only trying to watch teasers. One trailer. I'm trying not to watch multiple trailers. Tangents and all that aside, it's still to the point of like. But I'm curious, like, are they going to do that where it's like part of the story mix and matches with like Secret Invasion, like some of that kind of co-happens at the same time, or is it? I'm assuming it's just all going to be post Secret Invasion, but for her to be by his side, to like kind of be a diplomat to kind of talk things too, because he's like, yeah, I'm not very good at talking to people. It's like, yeah, we've seen your people skill sucks big time, and so for Fury, he wants his wife by his side, and then there's the whole situation of, for her, it's like, I'm going to basically help you out early on, but I gotta come back here. She's like, my work is here is important. I can only assume it's like, right, with the world basically declaring war on Skrulls, and you need to be here for your people, you know, so she's not going to stay. So I guess that's also a way around, like, hey, like, is she going to be like in the movie at all? It's like, probably not, and that's how you skirt around that, because it's like, no, she came back to Earth because she has business, so that kind of lets them all go of like, if she might make small appearance and then bounces to Earth, like, or maybe it's just like, no, she's already back on Earth by the time the movie starts, you know, so. And then there's the situation with Sonya and Gaia finding like that, I guess that's the million people that were replaced, because Gravik did say like, oh, he locked his people up, but I was like, did he really do that? Or is that supposed to represent, that ending supposed to be like, oh, here they are, all are put in this restful sleep? Or was that supposed to be, no, these are the people that they took their forms and are scattered around the world? I don't know if that was what that was supposed to signify, because the guy was like, wait, what is this? And Sonya was like, this is basically how they did what they did. So I guess these are the other the Skrulls that came to Earth that Talos called, and it's like, yeah, they're just scattered to the wind around the world. So that's got a lot of people to get through, a lot of people to identify and find out where said Skrulls that might look like them are. Like I said, like, I don't think those are the people that, because it was only like a handful of people that looked like that was way more than the people that was at Skrullos. I can assume those are the humans that were replaced by the Skrulls that came here. So, because like there was probably like maybe like 100 or something like that. Probably like maybe like a few hundred Skrulls, like on the lower end of few hundred Skrulls at Skrullos. So, just a lot of really interesting things on that front. And also, I didn't talk about it, but it's like Vara being in her own skin and going by her own name now. And for Fury, it doesn't matter. It's like, right, because I do love you. You for you and only being you. So I thought that was beautiful. Kind of answers our question from episode, 4? It's like whether or not they were going to renew their vows or get a divorce. And it's like, yeah, I think we're leaning more towards renewed vows at this point. So, but yeah, I've enjoyed this ride. I know it's not, sadly, not enough people have been watching it. I know some people, I've enjoyed, like, I know some people are like, oh, it's boring, but I'm also like, it feels like it's very befitting because it's a slow burn, but I guess for people, it's like, even, yeah, it can be a slow burn, but still not enough has happened. I've really enjoyed the show. I think it's taken some really I like a lot of the conversations. I like it being like mainly the talky show that it was. It felt very, very befitting in that spy vein of like, yeah, we have some action sequences, but it was very much like heavily like dialogue conversations between characters, which I really liked. But I know this has kind of been a mixed bag for some people. I've enjoyed it, but it's okay. I understand it has. I mean, it's not just this show. Obviously, it's Marvel in general. There's been a very mixed bag for people, but either way, I've enjoyed the show, and I'm excited to see where a lot of this takes us going forward. Whether or not it's the stuff that continues into said movie that shall not be named right now because no promo for anything coming up or from the studios, or whether it's just future plot stuff that's going to happen going forward in this universe. This is a nice ride of twists and turns, and I've really appreciated it. So obviously we all went into this knowing that this is going to be a miniseries. I looked it up just to confirm it, just to make sure. So it seems like, yeah, the general consensus of, yes, this is a miniseries, and it's super, super unlikely that we will get a season 2 with the way things played out, the way it ended. It makes sense. The story being told, that this is kind of the end. Once again, obviously there's still so much that carries over in the future, but you get the point I'm making. So to everyone involved in the show, cast, crew, thanks for making this show. I know, once again, I know it's not the Secret Invasion people wanted it to be from like the comic. But like I said, me personally, I really enjoyed it. And, I know this won't be the end for some characters. Like I said, some stuff is going to be carrying over in the future. But still, like, just for this particular story and this journey, and for the characters, obviously, and the actors we potentially won't be seeing going forward, sadly, in the case of, like, a Maria Hill or a Talos or a Gravik, you know, but this was a nice, spy thriller ride, and I've enjoyed it. So, I wish everyone involved, the best in their future endeavors. Really, that's all I wanted to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.